Hey y'all, it's Fantasia with Sewing with Tay. Welcome to my channel. Today I am making a video on appliques. I have been wanting to do an embroidery applique for a hot second now. I've just been crazy busy and I've been seeing a lot of people with the mama sweatshirts. I'll put a little picture here so you know what I'm talking about. The mama sweatshirt with the kids' names down the arm. I'm like, they're cute, but they're a little cute. So I'm like, I want to do one for myself, but I want mine to say my Dukes. And of course, they don't sell files to say my Duke, but I had one made. So I guess if you want to buy the file from me, you can let me know and I'll put it on my website so you can buy it. But I got a file now that says my Dukes in an applique embroidery, and it was super easy. I did watch some YouTube tutorials to try to walk myself through it. Now, what I'm going to show you is what I did. I can't say this is the correct way to do it, but it worked for me in my machine. I have a Brother Persona PRS 100 and it has an 8x8 frame. I wanted a full chest, like say it with your whole chest, my Dukes, sweatshirt, and my machine only does an 8x8. So I had to get a split frame, split hoop file created, and that's what I did. I was super nervous about doing this because you got to get it lined up with the hooping and the things, and I'm like, Lord, I don't know how this is gonna come out, but it worked. So I'm just gonna show y'all what I did. I can't say that I'm gonna do it again another time if it's gonna go the same way that it went this time, but this time it worked out. I did do this twice. I did like a little small chest one, and then I did the full chest one. We just want to go over the full chest one because the single chest one was a lot easier. For the appliques, I'm gonna go through this, but like as a quick rundown, I used a sweatshirt. I got it at the Sam's Club, and I had some leftover African print fabric, and I used this cutaway backing for the inside of the sweatshirt. I didn't use cutaway backing because I ran out, and I'm like, I just really want to get this done. But I had some cutaway backing that you technically should use for like t-shirts, and I had it, so I was like, I'm just going to use it and see. So at the end, I felt like it was a little wavy, but it wasn't too bad. So I'll go through all of that. I'll put links to everything I bought in the description so y'all can check it out if you want to. But let's just hop right into the video. I'm gonna talk you through it. It's a 20-minute video. I'm gonna tell you that now. I didn't go through every steps, and some of it is so you can see some of the stitch out. So I'm gonna turn some music on, let it play it at 2x speed, however you want to do it, that's your business. But let's get into the, I don't like to say sew along tutorial. Let's get through the embroidery along. Like, walk with me through the process and my thought process. Alright, here's my sweatshirt I got from the Sam's Club. It's like a Champion sweatshirt. It was like 20 bucks. I'm going to start off with marking my sweatshirt. I did 2 inches down from the top. In retrospect, I probably would have did 3.5, but here we are. I needed to find the center of my sweatshirt, so I just measured my neck seam to seam, and then I divided that in half. I used the lines on my kind of grid self-healing mat that's on the bottom to kind of straighten my ruler out, and I used that to mark my center front. And then from there, I looked at my file, and it was like 15 inches like total for the length, which actually was a little bit wide, but that's not like the actual length of the embroidery. So I kind of just marked out here like 7.5 like on each side, so I kind of would know where the embroidery should start, where kind of the middle should be. This is kind of my unconventional method of doing this. I've seen other people do it other ways, but it's confusing to me. So this embroidery is supposed to be like 4 inches tall, so I did measure, you know, the width 4 inches. So when my machine goes to trace out where the embroidery will be, my machine has a laser and it will point to the points on my garment, so I can be like, oh, this point here is a little closer to the bottom of where my embroidery is, and I kind of lined it up that way. Don't know if that's traditionally how you're supposed to do it, but that's what I've been doing. This is my African print fabric. This is some crazy cool fabric I got earlier this year from Test World Designs, and I actually really love it, and it was sold out. But I was so excited to use this for this sweatshirt, and I got a pair of Fenty Puma creeps that match this sweatshirt, so I'm like, this outfit is going to be fire. But The embroidery like outline was so thick that you could barely see the colors. So I was a little bummed about that. But here we go. I'm using the Mighty Hoop, and this here's what I was telling y'all about, that t-shirt cutaway like stabilizer. I went ahead and cut the stabilizer just a little bit bigger than my frame. This is my Mighty Hoop 7.25 frame. And I don't know if my machine could use a frame bigger than this. I don't know if there is an 8x8 frame, but this is a 7.25 frame. So that's what I'm using. And here's my Mighty Hoop station. So you put the bottom of the magnet down first. It has these little tabs that will hold your stabilizer. So you want to pop them open. They're not magnets, they're kind of like little snaps almost. But you will put your stabilizer in there, and then you close your little tabs on it to make the stabilizer tight. And sorry, you will see most of my arm because I did not have a good camera angle. But here we go. So I'm going to slide my sweatshirt over the like body form of this Mighty Hoop station. And sorry, I'll try to describe this, but the Mighty Hoop station has a center mark. So I tried to like visually line that up with the chalk mark I had on the middle, and I lined up my shoulder seams to be kind of even with the shoulders on this Mighty Hoop station. And then I kind of just was like filling around with it, making sure that it's straight. There's no extra fabric like hiding in there anywhere. Here is my cotton fabric. The first time I tested this out, I floated this fabric, meaning I did not put it inside the hoop. I just put it on top of my hoop when the embroidery started. But this time I thought, oh, I'm going to try to do it this way, because the first time I tried this, I did not use the hoop station. In hindsight, I was like, oh, if I do it this way, I can't really see my marks of where like the topmost corner is, or the bottom corner, or the center front mark. So I went and got some chalk, and I marked on top of the paper. And to set this hoop up, you just sit it on the plastic arms and you push it down, and it snaps the magnet pieces together, and it looks a little bit like this. Here's my machine. I'm going to slide my frame on, and you need to make sure that the bulk of your sweatshirt is out the way. Multiple times I had to take this frame on and off, and it wouldn't go on all the way because the sweatshirt was like too balled up in the back, and it was stopping the frame from sliding all the way in like it should. So you'll see I was kind of struggling here, but that was because the sweatshirt was stopping it from going all the way to the back. So you see here I had to kind of pull it out. You want to make sure you keep it away from the needle. I've seen people roll these up or like pin them so they're not in the way, but I felt like it was enough space here for me to just pull it on top of like the back of the arm. And you know, I always do a double check to make sure no sleeves or nothing is caught underneath the needle, because you don't want those problems. I had worked on this before, so I was having some issues at one point with my USB stick not reading in the machine. So when I put my USB stick in the machine and it was working, I just automatically saved these to the memory on my machine. So that's why you'll see them just pop up. But I decided that I was going to put this sweatshirt on the frame with the bottom hem going in first, which meant I needed to flip my embroidery so that it was upside down, because the top of the sweatshirt is the opposite end now. So I had to flip it around, and I wanted it to be pretty big, but then I realized I feel like it's just a smidge too big. So a smidge too big for my frame. So you'll see me try to map it out, and it was going over the like blue area of the frame, and I'm like, we can't have that because it will mess up your machine or break your needle or damage something. So I just went ahead and made it smaller, and I don't pay that much attention when I'm doing it. So I'm like, I'm gonna hit the reduce button 6 times, and then since this is a split frame, there's 2 of these, so I have this first half and then I have the second half. I need to make sure that they are still the same size. So I'm like, I'm gonna reduce it 6 times, and then when I get to the second half of this embroidery, I'm gonna reduce it 6 times again. So you'll see I had to like, I have a little X tool engraver over there that I also don't use, and the arm of the embroidery machine kind of hit it because it was having to go very far because the embroidery was just too big. So I did some adjusting and was able to finally get it to fit in the frame. On this embroidery machine, you can move around the placement once you get to the embroidery screen. Like I could move that MAD up or down, left or right. But when I was editing the files that I got from the girl on Etsy, I wanted to make sure that the letters were aligned so I wouldn't have like a D up high and then a U down low. So I didn't want to really move too much of the like placement like up and down. So I just used the arrows to move it left and right. So right now you'll see me again continuing to scan it and then move it over a little bit so that it matches up with that chalk mark I put on the cotton fabric. So you'll see here I'm zooming in. You can't really see the red light on camera because of the light, but there's a little laser that I can see going around the fabric so I know if it's going to hit the hoop, if it's hitting the spots that I put on there with the chalk. And honestly, it's mad annoying, but I do this like a lot. Like I might do it 4 or 5 times because I want to make sure that it's not going to hit the hoop and that it's going to be in the frame and it's going to be where I want it to be. I have had an embroidery machine. Well, I've actually had an embroidery machine for a very long time, but never used it because it was a combo machine. But I've had this embroidery machine for about a year, and I have become very familiar with removing embroidery stitches. So at this point, if I have to trace it out 5 times to make sure that it's hitting where I want it to hit, I'm gonna do it. So I finally got it to a good place. When you're doing appliques, the first thing it's going to do is just like simple stitch. I don't know if they call this a running stitch or whatever the reason, but it's a basic stitch. It's just a regular one line row of stitching to basically trace out the letters. The person who made this file for me did not put stops, so it was just going to keep stitching. And when I say by no stops, like it was going to do this running stitch, and then it did another stitch, which I didn't think was 100% necessary, and then it did another stitch, and then it did like the border stitch. So like if I didn't stop this manually, it was just going to keep stitching. So I was watching it closely, so as soon as this bead got finished, I can hit the up needle button and stop it so that I can then cut out my cotton, because you need to cut all the excess out so that when it stitches the border around the letters, that the edges, the raw edges of these letters are underneath those stitches. So here I've taken my hoop off. I do not want to take it out of the frame because the probability of me putting this in the exact same spot again, never going to happen. So I left it in the frame, and this is why I wish I had folded it, because it was so tight in the frame it made it hard to try to cut this off. And you want to cut really close to the letters, but you also do not want to cut into your sweatshirt. So I was trying to be very careful. This is sped up. I was trying to be very careful about cutting this and making sure that I could get in there, but also that I wasn't going to destroy my little special project. So here, this is only the first 3 letters of the Maldukes. So you'll see me trimming them out, and then I'll play some music, and when we get back to the embroidery machine, I'll come back. Alright, so now that I trimmed off a little bit of the excess fabric that was hanging around, because I do not want to take it out the frame, I'm going to take it back to my machine. And I started to have like some camera issues, so I like missed a few things. But see here, this is that extra stitch that I thought was a little bit unnecessary. I'm like, it's like another just straight stitch, and I'm like, not sure I really needed that. But then afterwards, it starts this like, I'm gonna say zigzag stitch around the letters, and it's not the like satin stitch that it will eventually do. So I'm like, I don't know if it needed this, but again, I'm not an expert, so I'm like, maybe it does. It came out okay, but I just felt like it was a lot of extra stitches. This right here took 47 minutes to stitch out. And again, you see how I moved that sweater out the way? Please don't stitch over your sweater. So I didn't catch all the letters because I was having some camera issues. But once it's stitched out, the like satin stitch and everything, this is how the first half of it looked. And now I'm going to move on to the second half. This is the part that scares me the most because I have to take my frame off and re-hoop it so that I can stitch the second half of this Ma Dukes. And I need to hoop it in a way that the letters will line up and they will look like it was stitched in one continuous like stitch out. So I'm using the Mighty Hoop again, but it was a little difficult because my like Mighty Hoop, the actual like hooper, I'm still learning how to use this thing. It has pegs on it and you have to line them up, but the pegs never hit where I want them to hit, so I was struggling. But I finally got it together, and I'm putting it back onto the machine, and I'm gonna exit out. I still have the MAD up on the screen, so I'm gonna hit the home screen. I have the other side saved, so I'm gonna go and pull up the rest of the embroidery file. And same with the other, I had to rotate it 90 degrees because as you can see, the neck opening is at the top edge and the hem is at the bottom. So I had to flip my embroidery upside down so that it would stitch top down, because that's how my sweatshirt is hooped onto the machine. So here you see me mapping it out. I'm gonna tell y'all, never ever ever stitch anything without mapping it out one time and one time only. My needle bar hit the edge of there and I was scared for my life. So after struggling the first time with trying to cut away the fabric because I hooped it into the frame, I was like, I'm gonna float it again. I'm gonna float it this time. So this is my fabric, and I'm just kind of pinning it in two spots while it's on the machine, while the garment is inside the embroidery hoop already. And I'm just gonna watch it to make sure like nothing flips over, there's no like extra wrinkles or anything in the fabric. And it worked out cool. It's going to stitch out the letters, and remember, these is just the basic stitches. And here's a close-up. I thought this was the really cool part. I wish there was a stop in there. I'm going to maybe reach out to that digitizer and ask her, like, can you add the stop? Also, I felt like my satin stitches was real wide. I feel like that's something that I could realistically fix myself in the digitizing software I have, but I don't want to. So I'm going to ask her to do it. Alright, I'm going to quickly trim my excess fabric. You see how much easier that was to start cutting away without it being attached inside the frame? So I'm going to kind of go in here and I'm going to cut it all out. This one didn't have as many small pieces like the A and the D. It did have like the K and the U. But for some reason, I don't know why, I felt like this one just was so much easier. I guess the S as well. So much easier. From people that I was reading that were doing these appliques, they were saying that, you know, this is like an important part of making sure these letters are cut out nicely. I've seen people use like crickets to cut them out, but that's a whole other thing, because I'm like, how do you place them and make sure that they're stitching on top of where they should be stitching? That's scary for me. So I'm going to stick to doing it this way until I figure out something else. So I'm going to cut all these letters out, and then I'm going to put it back in the machine to do the rest of the stitches. embroidery is done an hour or so later. You see how I mentioned it was a little wavy? You could see it a little bit when it was laying on the table. But it's no big deal. This is my first time. So here I'm going to take my scissors and trim away my stabilizer. So I just want to make sure you cut close to the edge, and also be careful. Don't cut your sweatshirt. That would be terrible, to cut your sweatshirt after you actually finish embroidering it and it's actually semi-aligned and actually semi-centered, and you cut your sweatshirt. I would cry real tears. So this is sped up, so I'm not going this fast in real life. But cut away your stabilizer. You can press it or steam it, whatever your cup of tea is. I was just making this video, so I didn't do any of the above, but I'm going to wear this sweatshirt to work tomorrow. So yeah, I would just earn it. But here is what it looked like. You'll see like what I mean when I said like I felt like the satin stitch was a little thick. I feel like it came together, but I feel like I wish more of the print would show, like if the block was a little bit thicker. But as a first time, I felt like it was pretty dope. So I'm gonna try it on, and this is something I'm definitely probably gonna layer. It's starting to get cold in Ohio, so this is just something cute to throw on. I got some shoes that match it. I actually have a couple of pair of shoes that match it, honestly. But this is my little Maduke sweater, and I love it. I feel like I'm gonna wear it a lot this fall. So if y'all have any questions, let me know. I think it came out pretty good for a first time for a full chest. I feel like it could have been shifted just a little bit to be a little bit more centered and drop down just a little bit to be more over the chest. But like it could be just rotated just a little bit, like 30 degrees. But honestly, I'm not mad at it. For a first time, I feel pretty excited about this. This is actually my first full chest embroidery. So here is a close-up. Thank y'all so much for watching. If y'all have any questions, you know I'm here for it. Leave them in the comments. But until next time, bye.